first audition that I got was for two things. There was this like suave vampire. It was like comedic, and it turned out to be Blood Lad. It was for Staz. Bryce Papenbrook eventually got that and killed that role. And the other one was this silver-haired, purple-eyed dude in a suit with a gun like this. And I was like, what a try-hard. And that's the one I booked. Because I made fun of it. And when you make fun of it, you disarm the situation and you have no pressure to succeed, I realize. And then that's when you open up and you get stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. And Leto led to basically nothing else for 2 years. You know, anyone who's a lead, they usually stay a lead for a while because they like to ride on that. Me, Gargantia got smushed at Anime Expo by Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Sailor Moon, and the return of Dragon Ball Z. But it's okay, because I eventually came back to anime 2017. I had to leave 2015 to 2017 to help my family, so I was gone for a while, and I missed out on One Punch Man season 1 for a while, and I was kind of hurt about that, but it's okay, because season 2 rolls around. I get Suiryu, who's my favorite character in the show, or in the manga, and I get Yaman Bagiri in Katsugeki Touken Ranbu. But going back to Gargantia for a second, story time. I used to work at a pizza joint as a day job when I was still, beginning out in acting. These days, I don't have a day job. Like, I just do voiceover full time, which is great, and it's a blessing, but it took 8 years to get there. But when I started out, I was doing pizza, and I was at the pizza shop, and I was actually having a conversation with my coworker, because I was like, oh my god, I'm working on a show, and like it has like Matt Mercer, and blah blah blah. And I turn, and there's Matt Mercer in his pajamas, ordering pizza. For him and his then girlfriend / fiance. I totally forgot which one. Yeah, and I was like, I was making the pizza. He gave me his order. I forgot what he ordered, and I make them. Like we're making the pizzas, and I'm like Matt, like Matthew or whatever it says, right, Matt. And he's like, thank you. And before he leaves, I'm like, by the way, I just want to say, I think you're my robot. He played my robot twice actually. He played it for Gargantia, and he played it for a game called Fairy Fencer F, where he was a robot, and I summoned him. He was my fairy. That's a weird thing to say. But yeah, Matt Mercer has been my robot twice, and I have been inside of him twice. That is a weird conversation to have. Anyways, good times. But yeah, I started off, and Matt was, like I told Matt, I was his pilot, and he was my robot. And he's like, oh my gosh, because we couldn't talk about it, in public. But he's like, oh my gosh, you're so good. You're like, like he was telling me, he was oozing charm and telling me all these things about how much he liked the acting and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, he's just like, yo, it's great seeing you. And like, every time he would see me, he'd be like, Alan, yeah. But that being said, yeah, Matt is great. Anytime I get to see him, and every time I get to hang out with him, he's cool. But going in, Gargantia was my first role in anime. It wasn't the first thing I did in voiceover, but it was the first role that I had in anime. It was basically the first thing I did in anime. And if you know anything about the show, Leto, the character, comes in and crash lands on a planet. He speaks an alien language, so when it's in his perspective, he's speaking English / Japanese / whatever, right? Something that the audience can understand. And when it's like the natives' perspective, he's speaking the alien language, and Chamber, who's the robot, is translating everything for them. I have the script still. The scripts, like when Gen Urobuchi wrote the script in mind, like he had in mind that like Leto would speak it's basically German, but like with the words scrambled, and that's what they would do in Japanese. We didn't get to do that. We had to listen to the Japanese and then basically do the same thing and add extra syllables if there was no lip flap not enough lip flaps in the actual animation. So not only was it my first role, and it's my first time doing like a lead role for anime and stuff like that, I also got a script where I couldn't just memorize the line and sync it. Like I had to like look up and down, and like it was a lot of pressure, and it was I'd say I'd like to call it baptism by fire, because it was hard, and like I was carrying the show, and I got nervous a lot. And Tony Oliver, who was my director, was like, "Alan, stop getting nervous. You're really good at this. You have to stop getting nervous." And that wasn't helping. And so like I felt very stiff, but it was okay because it translated well for the character, because he's very stiff in the show, and it's about him, like this like genetically programmed super soldier who now finds himself in a very uncomfortable situation. So it actually panned out really well. Man, I don't know if I could do that series again, just because of the alien language. Like I get so frustrated. But when we were watching the premiere at AX, because they showed off the first 3 episodes of the dub, I sat next to Tony Oliver and Xanthi Huynh, who's like one of my closest friends in the industry. And like after the first episode, I was just shell-shocked. I was just like, oh, and she was like, like punching me, joking, and being like, "Oh my God, you're all Alan, breathe. Alan, oh my God, breathe." Yeah, it was a mess. But it's okay, because that's how I found my sea legs. So Gargantia will always have a special part, special place in my heart. And yeah, I wish it would have gone on. It's one of those things where I'm just like, oh man, it has so much potential, and it's such a beautiful show. And I feel like it wasn't as commercially successful as a lot of the other shows coming out at the time, but if you watched it, you enjoyed it, and it meant something to you, and so kind of got cult, classic status. So I'm okay with that. Yeah, and then for a while, I didn't have a lot. I did Aldanoah.Zero as Shugo Kake, who basically plays Battleship. If they get hit, he goes, "We got hit!" And that, and that was fun. Yeah, and then I came, and then I left 2015 to take care of some stuff, personal, finances and stuff like that. And then basically that all disappeared back suddenly, like that in 2017. And then I came back, and then I immediately booked Katsugeki Touken Ranbu, where I played Yamabagiri, who basically has like imposter syndrome, and he's wearing like a cloak, and I call him Linus because he has emotional need problems. And then One Punch Man happened, and I got Suiryu, and I was like, yeah! Like, it was my favorite character, and I missed out on One Punch Man Season 1 back in 2016, so I was pretty happy about that. And then I think Canada took Beyblade and then transported it to LA, and then it was Shuker and I was a voice match, and it's like a popular character of that series, and I nailed it, and I was super happy about that. And the producers who kept going into the sessions kept making me like go deeper with the character. He's like 10, and like he's like one of the lowest characters I have to play, and I'm like, this man-child is like his balls are gonna drop to like the surface if we keep doing this. And eventually got to like Batman status, like, yeah, let's go. It was just crazy. But yeah, oh gosh, and then, what was it, 2018 around that time, 2019, 2020, Great Pretender happens. Great Pretender happens during the pandemic, and that is my Cowboy Bebop, because that was the first role that I did in pandemic, and as a result, we didn't know how fast or slow we were gonna go. So what ended up happening is, we just took our time. We're just like, screw it, like Netflix is being, comfy with it, because they're like, hey, you guys have to deal with new territory. It's okay, take your time. And then we snipped into the budget just a bit, but I got to explore every single like nook and cranny of every single line. And what you see, if you ever watch Great Pretender, is just me exploring the space and like with my creativity as much as I can, you know, in terms of that. And I'm really proud of that. And I will never get another one of those because nowadays it's all just about efficiency. It's all about like, does it fit the line? Does it fit the lip flap? Yeah. Okay. Cool. We'll move on. But you know, for that show, it's like no. Let's. It fits. It's good, but we can make it better. And you rarely get to see that nowadays. And if you saw anything from the previous panel that I was in, you know, for the senpai chit chat, what kind of name is that? That's weird. Are you guys Kohan? That's weird. But you know, as a result, that was my Cowboy Bebop. That's what I have to say. If I didn't do any more anime, which is not the case, but if I weren't to do any more anime after that, I'd be okay. That's how good that was to me. It was very, very like nurturing to my soul. And unfortunately, it's at Netflix, so a lot of people didn't get to see it because a lot of people just don't have Netflix subscriptions because they're not thinking, oh yeah, anime, Netflix. You know, usually it's Crunchyroll or Funimation, something else. So I feel like it just doesn't get a lot of attention, which again, if you've seen it, tell your friends. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. What are you doing here? It's great in English and in Japanese, but I prefer the English. I mean, I might have a little bit of bias for that, but it's really good. And if you know, you know. So, yeah, and then that same year, which is last year, what am I talking about? Yashahime came out, and I was just thinking, oh man, like, I watched Inuyasha growing up, you know, back on Adult Swim, and I was like, what is this show? And I kept watching it through, and Kohaku appears, and I'm around his age at the time, so I latch onto that character, and Saga was my favorite character, so I loved the scenario of like, being, you know, like, just that play pretend of that scenario, putting yourself as a character who is basically like revived and is forced to do someone else's bidding and has to have this conflict against his own sister and all that sort of. It's a really interesting scenario, and I played pretend as that in between weeks that I did not get to watch the show, you know, because we only got one episode a week, which is still what they do every Saturday on Adult Swim. But I latched onto that character, and I really enjoyed, you know, Inuyasha. And then 18 years later, the show comes back as Yashahime, as the sequel, and the auditions go out, and I get Hisui and Kohaku, and I look at Kohaku, and I'm like, if no one else watched all freaking 8, 9, whatever, or like 8 seasons? 8 seasons, right? If no one watched all 8 seasons like I did, that's mine. Because I know how the character talks, I know how they interact, and I know how the Canadian dub worked to make feudal, you know, like the feudal era characters sound. I know how that all feels, and so I feel like I was like the right guy for the job, and as long as no one else did that, I would be fine, and I nailed it, and I got it. I actually wanted Hisui, who was played by Alex Lee. I was runner-up for both. Actually, I got Hisui, in the callbacks, I got Hisui and Kohaku. But I figured a lot of other younger sounding guys can probably play Hisui, so they gave me Kohaku, just as like a sort of like, well, there's less people who can play Kohaku, so let's get him. But yeah, and then continuing to work with NYAV, I did Fena Pirate Princess. And when I got the role, I felt like it was just Edamame from Great Pretender again. Because he yells a lot, and he's sort of the comedic, like, what the hell is wrong with you people, sort of, you know, character. And yeah, no, it's at last, actually, we're still recording it. Like, episode 5 is coming out tomorrow, and I'm like, we still have like 3 episodes left. Why aren't we, I don't know. Maybe something to do with the animation, because it's beautiful, and beautiful takes a lot of time. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where we are.